Hello, 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 Berlin. Welcome to this LinkedIn Live. I'm Julia Singh. I am communication coach and trainer, and today I'm joined by Helene Andreas. She is a team development consultant, investor, and a board member of Entrepreneurs Organization who has spent over a decade working with organizations. And today we will be diving in one interesting, for me, very personal topic of bringing meaningful conversations and honest conversations to workplaces. So we are here in Berlin. It is exciting to have you join in person. Many, many thanks for taking the time and be here.
Yeah, thanks you. Thank you for having me. I need to say this is super exciting. I haven't actually been on a LinkedIn Live myself. To start with honesty, right? Yeah. Again, thanks for the invitation.
Yes, thank you. I've been a couple of times at LinkedIn Live, but it always feels interesting. You always learn something new. For example, talk straight into the microphone. And I would like first to welcome everyone who is joining us live and watching a replay later. Welcome. Thank you for your time. Those who are with us right now, you are very, very welcome not to be only the passive listeners, but feel free to share your perspectives, your questions, and actively co-create our conversation together. I am here monitoring our comments, so feel free to uh, make some buzz there. Also, feel free to share where are you dialing in from. It will be very, very interesting. And also, if you're watching replay later, you can contribute. We are reading those comments and can respond and react afterwards. And yes, on this note, let's start. I would like to take a minute to share my motivation behind this topic. I am on a mission to inspire conversations full of authenticity, courage, curiosity, and compassion. And I discovered this mission in 2008 when I started to host deep talks conversation salons, basically creating a space for strangers to come together and connect beyond work talk or small talk on topics that matter. And it felt to be so nourishing that eventually it inspired me to quit my full-time job of 5 years and work my way to make more out of this passion project. And now I'm fully convinced that this benefit of wholehearted open communication is not only valuable to make friends and private connections, but especially in our workplaces where we spend so much time, where on our collaboration and relationships there is so much at stake. And that is why now I'm working on bringing these team experiences to workforce. And it is an assumption, of course, that this is what we need. And the way how I would love to approach it is to learn from people who work with organizations for many years, much longer than I do, and learn from their experiences. That's why I'm very grateful to have Helene on my side today to see what her experience taught her and see how it can bring us further. So, without much further ado, Helene, how many years actually are you working with the teams?
I think in terms of work, it's been something between 10 to 15 years. But my first team experiences that have shaped sort of my career and my passion working with teams have been at university. So I was a math and statistics tutor while studying business economics and was in charge of 4 different classes with 15 students each. And the dynamics in these teams were completely different. And that motivated me to study social psychology afterwards as a master's. And after that, I was very determined to become a team and organizational coach to help teams perform better. But knowing sort of I can't do that straight out of uni, what I ended up doing is joining consulting, a very high performance work culture. And I spent 6 years at consultancy that I very much enjoyed, Profit. And they sent me to Hong Kong, and I had lots of beautiful experiences. And then I switched to German Mittelstand, essentially, where our family has invested in a couple of companies. And I have found that how teams work is a substantial contributor to, or can be a substantial contributor to, company performance. So, coming from math and statistics, thinking I would go into a finance direction, I have been focusing the last couple of years, also with a coaching background, on helping teams become better teams, not just for their mental health, but also because I think it's key for performance.
Yes, thank you. And I can imagine that companies bring you in not to inspire conversations per se, but to solve some issues. And yeah, what are the most common challenges where they bring you on board?
At the moment, I would also say this has changed over time, but at the moment, a lot of companies are struggling with employee uncertainty on the one hand, and which is quite understandable with everything changing. And then at the same time, companies wanting to change and transform, which can mean lots of different things. And within that, it's become very important to build teams that feel resilient, and that can adjust to the external changes. And those are basically the key things that I'm doing right now. And that's quite different from a couple of years ago. I would say maybe 10 years ago, it was all about growth. Maybe 5 years ago, it was all about saving money. And now it's about resilient teams that are well set up for the future.
Yeah, I can imagine now, even with AI, there is even more uncertainty. And yeah, you have mentioned that uncertainty, desire to change, resilience. And how do you see that these challenges correlate with the quality of communication and conversations in teams?
I think this is a great point to get to my favorite pyramid that we brought. Um, so to me, this is one of the key frameworks I like to work with. It's called Five Dysfunctions of a Team by Patrick Lencioni. Patrick Lencioni has written many amazing books. And there's also one that's called The Advantage, which is absolutely amazing. And the five dysfunctions of a team show a pyramid for people who can't see. And I'll describe the different layers of the pyramid. And it's a pyramid because you need to have the lower levels before you can actually proceed to the next levels. And I'll answer your question in a second. So the lowest level is it's formulated as a dysfunction, absence of trust, which comes through invulnerability. Then the second layer is fear of conflict, which comes through artificial harmony, the very common one. Then the next one is lack of commitment, which comes through ambiguity. Then avoidance of accountability, which comes through low standards, and inattention to results, which comes from status and ego concerns. And I'd like to go through them in a little bit more detail later. But to answer your question, I think a key component of all of these layers is communication, because communication is a tool to build trust, and is basically what you need to build trust over time. But also, communication has a key impact on your ability to have constructive conflict. So one of the things that I see with almost all of my clients is that they have a very big fear of conflict, and then they move into artificial harmony because they do not trust in the team's ability to end up at a place that feels good. But my experience is that if you help teams overcome this fear and actually talk about things that they before weren't able to talk about, and this is one of the key things I do, they feel so connected and so happy and so relieved. Just last week, I had a workshop with the clients, and it was 8 people. It was a leadership team. One person came in and was close to tears because somebody had left the team. And at the end of the session, people were so optimistic, and something magic happened. And it's going to be a tough time for the team, but they feel so solid and strong together.
Yes, yes, thank you. And I think we all observe the situations that it is easier sometimes to say nothing, and this fear of conflict is real. And how do you observe what are the underlying reasons for choosing silence? And also, is it like, yeah, fear of conflict, fear of judgment, fear of yes, not believing that your voice will make a difference? And how could people actively change this perspective?
So on the first question, it's very much also around starting with trust again, and trust comes from a culture that allows you to say I don't know, or I didn't do this well, or can you help me? It sounds as basic as that, but if people look at this pyramid, they very often think, oh, of course we trust each other because I don't think that somebody's going to stab me tomorrow, if I'm being very harsh. But that's not the kind of trust I'm referring to, or this pyramid is referring to. It's very much around a different quality of trust that needs to be built. And this quality of trust only comes over time with experiences that people have reacted to you in a compassionate way. If you say something like, I don't know, or can you help me? And then again, this is sort of the foundation. And then if as a team you haven't experienced that having difficult conversations can lead you to a better place, I find it quite understandable that you'd rather not, right? Because we all know everybody's schedule is super tight. Everybody gets lots of emails, and something like a conflict can get out of hand pretty quickly, time wise and emotionally. So a lot of people are just like, I don't have time for this, so I just rather not go there. But it's quite key to actually go there, and it saves time at some other point. But it also requires people to consciously make time for that, and to not just do it, but maybe actively even say that this is what they're trying to build.
Yeah, and we can all say, oh, we do not go into the conflict, but even if we would go away out of the conflict in that specific conversation, conflict does not go away from inside. And understanding, I always say, choose your fear. We may have a fear of confrontation, but we also should consider, if we avoid this confrontation, it would start certain internal reactions that would make people either quit or be completely overwhelmed, or do some not really like productive and positive things behind the back. So that you choose the fear, and fear more of leaving it undone and not said, and creating this like, yeah, different reality where everyone thinks everything is fine, as you say, this false harmony, and in reality this is not. And how do you think, what kind of like awareness shall leaders and all people within organizations have to create this healthier relationship, healthier culture?
What kind of awareness? So I've worked with teams that have seen this pyramid and were like, okay, this looks nice. You go do this with the team, and I'm going to watch the results. So if people don't really engage with this kind of a framework, or the thinking behind it, in a curious way, which also includes a self-reflective way, where might I not be the person who contributes to a culture of trust, and where might I not be a person who helps to contribute to have a good culture of constructive conflict, etc. I think that's the key point. And in those teams, it's usually very, very tricky to actually continue this line of work. What very often happens, that if you reach people in the team but the leader is not on board, then the teams get frustrated with the leader, and then it's not really yeah, it's not really good for anybody. My favorite projects are the ones where clients come up to me asking for this kind of a framework. I've had that 2 or 3 times. And then some other people I can show the framework and they are excited about it. And if they're on board, that can also change a lot. But so the question was, what kind of awareness do they need? So I think the key thing is self-reflection and curiosity about this way of looking at teams.
Yeah, thank you. For me, one of the most poignant statistics that I've seen from employee satisfaction reports was that 75% of employees' engagement at work depends on the quality of their relationship to their supervisor. So basically, the role of a leader and the way how a leader makes their people feel is absolutely crucial in the way how people will actually engage and invest in their work. And that is why this awareness of how I show up, how I talk, what energy I spread, what environment I set as a leader has very huge impact. And as you were saying, that fear comes from certain culture, and that is the ability to set the scene, to say, I am not almighty, all-knowing guru. I would love to hear constructive feedback. I would love to know that you have ideas how we can do better. I would love to create environment where we can all question each other, we can admit mistakes, and we can help each other like innovate. And that this could be already one of those ways to create this healthier environment, given permission to do it. And of course, the most powerful thing that you can do as a leader is set an example, because when you open up, you really like set the scene that this is a space for this.
Yep, absolutely. I've seen this several times, and it's so much more impactful and meaningful when leaders set the stage.
Yeah. Is there any example maybe that you could share without going into names or details, just to make it a bit more tangible?
So one exercise I do in different degrees of depth, depending on what I think the client is ready and willing to do. In the beginning is to draw a lifeline. That's a concept that we use at Entrepreneurs Organization a lot. And you basically draw your highs and lows along the lifeline. And then you pick out 3 points in your lifeline that have contributed to your work self. There's different ways to then look at the lifeline, but we don't need to go into private self at work. So you basically you're open to share whatever kind of experience you had, and then say, okay, this experience caused me to be super independent at work because I learned that I had to trust myself, something like that. So people really get to know you. And I've seen leaders, several, that have started this round of sharing that have gone into something very emotional and very personal. And that made people follow. Afterwards, everybody shared something personal and emotional. And you could say, okay, why is this even relevant? And some people are very uncomfortable with these kinds of things at work. And again, it's not a must, it's an option. But it really created a foundation for the teams to continue building trust afterwards. And if leaders aren't basically role modeling that kind of behavior, then the kind of conversation is also not going to happen.
Yes, thank you. It makes me immediately think of Brené Brown and all her work around vulnerability, and that this is a paradoxical quality that we seek for vulnerability in others because it makes people human and relatable. And at the same time, especially in work context, we are usually afraid to show something personal and human as it might be perceived as weak. That yeah, somewhere it should be some opening in all these things. And how do you perceive it? I noted down, you just used the words, you don't need to go into your private self at work, and at the same time if we are only staying in full professional roles, then it will be, I don't know, one robot part of us talking to another robot part, but everyone is somehow breaking inside, overwhelmed, uncertain, some private things which may also take some emotional space. How can we find some healthy balance between not showing anything, but at the same time still being our authentic selves?
That's a very nice question. I think what I would do is to try and find people that I trust, which doesn't have to be my work team, and then basically test it out. Because where I would also like to go is that I have been vulnerable in the past and it didn't go well always, right? So this is definitely not saying you always need to be vulnerable and it always goes well. I think there is an importance in taking the time to see who can you trust, and are people aligned on the degree of vulnerability that they're willing to share. um,
I also, yeah, I also see that we have like a couple of people watching live. So everyone is very, very welcome to share your perspective, how open you are in relationships with your colleagues, with your boss. Do you feel you have enough honesty in your conversations? And yeah, we would love to know so that we can validate from your experience too. So thanks. Feel free to share.
Maybe one thing I'd like to add is it has not gone so well in the past sometimes, but what I've also learned is that it's important to me. So I think now I would always look for places that have this kind of honesty, because I think this quality in a relationship is something that is really important in um, performance one, but also in having a good day and having like solid relationships, which are a key thing, as you said it in the very beginning, not just for private life, but like work life where you spend so much time.
Yeah. And how do you think? I think one of the biggest challenges that you have at work life, you want exactly on one side have those high results. On the other side, you would like to still have space to be human and to have a good time. And there could be a challenge. Sometimes leader may be very good in making people reach results, or it can be a very compassionate, empathetic leader, but then the results may be struggling. So how could we be like clear and while still maintaining this compassion?
Do you know Radical Candor?
No.
Okay, Radical Candor would be another book recommendation, but I haven't prepared a slide on it. Radical Candor is by Kim Scott, and it basically says that you can be direct and care at the same time, which can also mean that you can say, okay, this is not okay, or this is not going to work, or that you cannot do this today, like setting boundaries, setting directions. Also maybe being a little bit more harsh. But it comes from good intentions. It's coming from the ideally deep knowledge of knowing where the team or the person or the company needs to go. And Kim Scott changed the Radical Candor book to something, I think she changed it to Compassionate Candor, because some people said, okay, Radical Candor is an invitation to be aggressive. And that's not the point. So it's really about caring, being compassionate, but within that also, setting clear boundaries and knowing or having the ability to judge when is what's necessary. And I think this is a key ability of a leader, because I don't think the leader of the future can do only one or the other.
Yes, thank you. I also had to remember, I think it was a insight from Adam Grant about giving feedback, which of course could contain the element of like criticism, some improvement, while framing it in the beginning. I'm telling it to you because I believe in your potential and in your ability to do even better. So that this assumption is that it would help the person to take it without getting upset or defensive, because this is exactly this power of communication. It is not only what you say, but how you say it. And ultimately, sometimes this how you say it has more impact, because as Maya Angelou say, people will forget what you said. They will never forget how you made them feel. And this is one of the biggest powers, as we all have. It doesn't matter if we are appointed leaders or not, with the way how we speak, how we show up, how we can either empower or discard people around us, will create completely different environments. And yeah, that is why also now I think maybe we touch a little bit upon the topic of belonging, because especially now when AI potentially will take all our jobs very, very soon, no one knows how everything will be restructured and reshaped. How do you see, belonging playing into all of this, and like what happens when people don't feel that they belong? How does that shape communication?
That shapes communication a lot. I think with AI, the quality of relationships is going to become a key factor. So I also think we are going to get better overall in building trustful relationships, both in work and outside. And people that are investing in these kinds of abilities to increase quality of relationships are going to be um, equipped for the future. Let's put it that way. Your question was, how does?
If belonging, how does
Oh yeah,
sense of belonging impact team success? And
yeah. I think it does impact team success a lot. I'm not sure. I feel like a lot of people have a pretty big sense of belonging, and if they don't, I'm not sure it's important to them. Or if they do, I think they're looking for places where they feel like a sense of belonging. Communication, I think in high performance teams is going to be trickier. If there's no sense of belonging, in other teams maybe it's not so important.
and in high performance, because otherwise there would be like more competition, or why do you see this particularly important in the high performing teams?
I think in high performance teams there's an element of each person needing to reflect on what is needed. So if we think back at the pyramid, one of the aspects is to put the team results above your own, which means that you need to understand sort of what are the different components that need to be done and have the team results in mind. And if that's what you're doing, I think it's more likely that you're going to do that if you feel a sense of belonging, because otherwise you're more focused sort of on your own goals, and then it's just not going to work. Then there's a key ingredient for a high performance team is not given.
What do you think, that apart from setting this healthy culture to talk about mistakes, to talk about feedback culture, what else is helpful to create this culture of belonging?
I think celebrating team successes. So usually what happens in successful team development processes that I'm a part of, a certain dynamism unfolds, and then people are just super excited to be part of the team because things are just working. They're falling into place because now we understand if some person snaps at me, I don't take it personally. I'm not stuck in the, oh, maybe he doesn't like me kind of a loophole, which drags me down, but I'm more in this, oh, he snapped at me, but I understand why. And let's make this happen. And I've seen this a couple of times. It's the most beautiful moment when teams overcome this, everybody being stuck in their potentially negative loophole of thoughts versus being like, okay, wow, we can really make something happen here together. And these successes are a big aspect of creating a sense of belonging, I feel.
Yes, thank you. Definitely, like sense of appreciation is always a good idea. And I can only add up creating the sense of engagement, allowing everyone to share their thoughts and to contribute to certain decision making processes, to make everyone feel welcome to contribute. And then even if you say thank you, I still choose to make a different decision, but then everyone will know at least we were heard. It is not that it was completely made over our heads. This also from my experiences of working in teams, I was always motivated when I knew that people care about my opinion.
Absolutely. It's so small and technically so easy and therefore so surprising if it's not done, but it's very often not done, probably for time reasons or something. Yeah, very much agree.
Yeah, this is exactly this kind of like awareness that sometimes it just takes a couple of sentences in the beginning of a meeting, or certain follow-up process, or even some, I don't know, anonymous box where people can write some kind of feedback to create this space without taking all the time in the world to spend it in meetings. But as our time is also slowly coming to an end, it's easy how fast it can go. I am curious to learn from your perspective uh, about certain actionable ideas and takeaways for people who may be listening to this in different roles, and they say, it makes sense to me. I really would love to be this driver of positive change in my company, and make sure that we have this more open communication for better belonging. If it would be exactly a leader, who is a leader, what a person as a leader could do, where could you get started?
I think a good place to start is to set up team meetings that are dedicated to just that, where you potentially talk about what went well, what didn't go so well, and you start practicing giving each other feedback in a more natural way, but also talking on a meta level about how you work, and not just in one-on-ones, but actually with your entire team. And people ideally will then experience, okay, it's safe to actually raise a concern, nothing will happen, and it's safe to give each other feedback. So I think that's one thing you can do as a leader. And then I think role modeling constructive conflict is another big one. And if that's something that you think is tough to do on your own, there is people that can help. But I think it's really important to make the space for it actively, and to invite people to raise concerns and go into tricky conversations that could also mean criticism.
I also am mediator, and this was very important part of understanding what is a mediation. That sometimes when there is a conflict and there are certain positions, I want this and I want this, but in reality, invitation is always to look deeper and to understand what are the needs and what are the desires behind every position, because it may not be about A and B, it may be about something else. And once there will be willingness to understand another person, and from this perspective, and willingness to address it and desire to find the solutions that will fulfill those needs, maybe there could be different solutions found which would be win-win, and help transform this opportunity, that the conflict is an opportunity to improve communication, to learn more about each other, and to find some different way forward driving this positive change. So that conflict is not pleasant, but conflict can be a great opportunity, where unaddressed conflict could be exactly grow into much more dysfunction. And that ability to be honest and to address your feelings, and that would make you more relatable.
I'd like to say something where I can hear lots of leaders thinking, okay, well, great, this sounds amazing, and I could do this. But I have so many other things to do that are more important, and this is sort of like priority number 10. In my experience, if leaders turn this into a top priority, it's actually a really, really big performance driver. And maybe at this point we could briefly go to the second slide.
You are so excellently prepared.
So this is from a consultancy called Humatica. Humatica works mainly with PE companies and quantifies the softer things to show the impact of behaviors on EBITDA profitability in this case. And I'd like to point out the third point here at 0.86, correlation with EBITDA profitability is not avoiding difficult conversations, which is exactly what we're talking about, and it has a one-to-one effect on performance. So particularly if we say things like feelings, and it's important to talk about feelings and everything, a lot of people in my experience are like, oh, I don't want to go there, I don't have time for that, but it's actually related to performance and profitability. So and the other points here are also manager follow through and engagement in meetings, which is also very much related to what we've been talking about, and people involved in decision making, which I also think is a form of belonging. If you feel like your opinion is being heard, right, like you said, and then you're building something together, and you feel like your perspective has been taken into consideration in the decision, I think that's all drivers of lots of positive things, but also EBITDA profitability.
Yes, yes, thank you. ABTA profitability, it is basically what is important for like business owners, for the managers, CEOs, and at the same time our own well-being as an employee who comes and lives the majority of your day when you are not sleeping, you are not with your loved ones, you are not with your hobbies, you are there at work with your colleagues, with your boss, working on some making visions alive. And that, yeah, sometimes, like now I asked you about what can a leader do, but what will happen that if you are an employee and you feel, yeah, that maybe only two people the whole time are the loudest in the meeting, or that your boss has not yet had this awareness to create this welcoming space for everyone. I always try, as like my coaching part, empower everyone to be their own leader and not to wait for any like formal appointment, and feel the power that all we can all actively co-create the environment. And even if you are a part of a team, you can invite someone else to share their perspective. There are some elegant tricks how you can do it. For example, you can say, and I've noticed that Stephen has not yet shared, and to give Stephen a moment to think about it, if he wants, I want to say a couple of words myself. In this way, you will create space for one more person to speak out, and also you will make sure that your voice is heard. Here is one important thing that I always want to remind, especially like for women, that there is this performance bias, and it tells us that usually men are subconsciously judged by their potential and women are judged by their achievements. So that is why it is always good to be aware of it and not be shy to speak up in meeting, to share your thought, to share your success, to ask a question, so that people will know, okay, you are there and you belong there because you have something to contribute. So no false modesty, ladies. But yeah, last kind of like question, what, it might be the trickiest one. What if a leader is not really like open to all these ideas, that there is not a lot of awareness that creating this psychological safety, creating those environment to feel seen, to be really honest, is a priority? Can anything be done from the middle of the team?
That's a really tricky question that you asked it before, and I tried to think of a good answer. And I think in the middle of the team, you can stabilize each other. Like you can build a team that that is strong within itself. But honestly, then you still need to ask yourself: Is this does it work? It could work even if the leader isn't open. I'm not saying that's impossible then to work with each other, but I think do need to ask yourself, like, is this going to work for me in the long term? If you have that kind of awareness already, because if a leader doesn't want to go there, then in my experience he won't. Yeah, and it wouldn't be the place that I would choose to engage.
Yes, sometimes it is harder to change something rather than to change your own
Yeah.
environment. Okay, yes, thank you for this. And at the same time, okay, for all those people who are on the edge, who maybe just simply didn't pay enough attention, what do you think? What would be your couple of top arguments to really prioritize creating this environment for safety, for honesty, instead of just keeping it all business, super brisk and factual without actually knowing what's happening on the inside?
What would be the main arguments?
Yes, to
Um,
choose honesty and not just in communication, but in culture.
I think a key argument is I wonder whether teams are going to survive if they aren't, because everybody's work life is going to change in the next couple of years very substantially. And um, basically, you will need to have honest conversations about what is working, what isn't working, about your feeling of where things should be going. And if that is not happening, I wonder how these teams can adjust fast enough. Because something about honest conversations is that it gets you a lot of speed, and speed is key, right? Already, and is going to be even more important. And if you don't have honest conversations, we had it a couple of times today. What happens very often is that conversations happen behind closed doors with only a few people, or people go, as you said earlier, people go into their own rabbit hole of, oh, what happened, or maybe this person doesn't like me, or maybe I'm not doing a good job or something. And all of that is time not well spent. So I think there are lots of arguments for it. It would be more tricky to think of an argument against it.
Yes, thank you. I saw some statistics that this kind of like quiet quitting costs up to 30% of the paycheck if employees are actively disengaged or burdened or in any type of like not in a harmony situation. So then, yes, I thank you so much for taking the time to share it. So if there is exactly maybe one key takeaway out of this conversation for you, what is it?
Mm. Um, Maybe where we sort of landed last, honesty being a key driver of speed and performance and well-being. Um, and that doesn't mean necessarily that from now on everybody has to be honest in every setting with every person, etc. Of course, there needs to be some judgment around in which setting does it make sense to be honest with which people, etc. But if there is something on your mind and you're not talking to anybody on the team about it, I think that's a big lost opportunity.
Yes, yes, thank you. It is actually very much in line with Mahmoud's comment. What is most important is that personal is not the same as private. Sharing cultures, habits, preferences does not reflect private life. It opens the door for trust and connected teams, but keep it away from vulnerability. Yeah, it is interesting nuance. Thank you very much for highlighting this. Yeah, for me, the key takeaway is what you have just recently said, that, yeah, kind of like teams cannot survive without trust. And exactly now, when AI will come and transform more and more with every year, that preserving our humanity is one of the most important things to help us thrive and co-create with it, instead of everyone is like just separated in panic, pretends everything is working out fine on the outside. But yeah, if someone sees the iceberg about to hit the Titanic and staying silent, we don't want it. And just not, yeah, kind of like choosing the other fear over this one. So yes, thank you. Thank you very much, Helene. Thank you everyone who took the time to listen. Feel free to share your thoughts. What had been some example of bringing more honesty to your teams? How do you do it? And yeah, let's keep talking. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.